Welcome back to the solution guide for Unit 13 practice quiz. We're going to just focus on 13.9 now, and I'll do a separate video about the lab question. But 13.9 asks you to write net ionic equations and identify the spectator ions in a solution phase reaction. And in this particular problem, we've already done the work of writing the equation for you, and we've already predicted the products. So in the case of the first one, we see that we have an aqueous product in NaNO3, and we have a solid product in AgOH. So this reaction occurs. So the reaction occurs. Now, it occurs because the AgOH is what's driving the reaction, or is what's being produced. It's the solid. So we're going to write the net ionic equation for that. So I always do these by writing them backwards, starting with the AgOH. So the first thing that I need to kind of keep in mind is, what are my ions, right? So in general. So silver, Ag, if I go to my periodic table, I look and I see that silver has a charge of +1 always. So this is going to be a +1. Nitrate is a polyatomic ion, and if I go to the back of my periodic table, look, it's NO3 right there. It's a -1. So nitrate is going to be a -1. And then sodium, if I go to the periodic table, we've seen already, it's going to fall in that first column, so that's going to be a +1 as well. Okay, so it's going to be a +1. And OH, we're going to take a look for. It's on the back of our periodic table. Oh, I forgot to grab the right periodic table, but it's OH, which is a -1. So in this case, OH is going to be a -1. So that's really, really critical and important for when I go ahead and I write the net ionic equation. So I always start by writing the solid, or work backwards. So I write the solid first. So that means that I have OH and Ag as my product. I know that it's a solid because that's the state of matter that it's in. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab the ions, or the atoms that make up the solid. So I see that silver is present, so that's going to be my Ag. And we've already quickly identified that it's a +1, which is pretty important. And then the OH is present, and we've already identified that's a -1. And the charge, again, is really important. The other thing that we have to keep in mind is, what is the state of matter? And since AgNO3 is aqueous, that tells us that as a reactant, Ag has to be aqueous as well. And in NaOH is also aqueous, so the OH has to be aqueous as well. And in this case, it happens to be balanced the way that it is, 1, 1, 1. So we're okay there. Now, your spectator ions are the ions that don't form the reaction, or they're basically what's left over. So that means that in this case, my spectator ion would be something like NO3 with a -1, and Na with a +1. So that's that. In question number 2, we're going to be looking at whether or not the reaction occurs, and that dictates whether or not you need to write a net ionic equation. So in this case, because NaCl is aqueous and K3PO4 is also aqueous, so we have two aqueous products, we have no reaction occurring. And if no reaction occurs, all we simply have to do is report out what the spectator ions are. We still need to take a second to identify what their charges are, though. So again, hopping back over to the periodic table tells me that sodium is in my first column, so it's a +1. Phosphate is a polyatomic ion. It's going to be on the back. It's PO4 with a -3, so that's going to be -3. Potassium is in the first column. So we're going to go find potassium again. That's right here. That's in the first column, making it a +1. So potassium is going to be a +1. And chlorine is in our 17th column over here, which is making it a -1. So that's going to be a -1. So now all we're going to do is just simply list the ions that are spectating or not reacting. So I'm going to have Na +1. I'm going to have PO4 -3. I'm going to have potassium +1. And then I have chlorine -1. So those are our ions that are spectating or not reacting in problem number 2. So in Learning Target 13.9, you have to be able to identify whether or not the reaction occurs and then write the net-anic equation if necessary. If you have any questions, please reach out to me and let me know. Otherwise, good luck preparing for your quiz tomorrow.